Whoops. Well, that's broken something. One of my favorite modifications of the last series was the Penrose cube, and I am gonna make no lies, I really want to do it to a 5x5, so that's what I'm gonna do today. Okay, so I really wanted to make a Penrose cube modification, and I felt like I overplayed it a little in the last series, but I haven't seen a 5x5 Penrose cube before, so I kind of wanted to jump in and take the title. But I also really wanted to make this puzzle because I've never actually made a curved edge of a 5x5 without using the barreled method before, so this was kind of going to be an experiment. You see, I've made countless 5x5 barrels. It's one of my most mass-produced puzzle, and it's typically built in the exact same way every single time. I spin it between my fingers as you would expect, but I've never done the edges individually, so this was going to be a bit of a learning curve, and yes, that's a pun intended. After I was finished cutting all three of the edges on the bandsaw, now it was time to disassemble the puzzle so that I could fill all of those pieces. And if this build looks similar to a 5x5 barrel, that's because it is. It's pretty much a 5x5 barrel just with one less edge than usual. After I was finished disassembling the puzzle, I sorted the pieces out into those that weren't going to be modified in this build and those that I was going to be filling with the epoxy sculpt. This was a pretty tedious process because the blade on my bandsaw is starting to get a little dull, so all of the pieces had kind of stuck together and slightly melted, but that wasn't too big a deal as I was kind of used to it by now. Now it was time to get out the epoxy sculpt, so I scooped out some of part A and B and I mixed it up, and then I began filling all of the pieces. I filled the pieces in small batches, mixing up just enough epoxy sculpt to probably fill about an edge worth at a time. The reason I do this is because if you mix it all up at once, there's a good chance that when you get to the last few pieces, it's going to be so hard it's basically unusable. I took them to the oven for a quick round of curing, and now that everything was cured, it was time to reassemble the puzzle. And after everything was assembled, I tightened it up so much that it wouldn't turn, but not enough that I would break it. And then I took the puzzle over to my belt sander and I began sanding down each of the three edges. The way I did this was kind of experimental. I pushed it up against the side of the belt sander and I slowly rolled it back and forth, trying to build up that curved shape. Despite taking a bit of getting used to, I quickly got the shape right to where I wanted it, so now it was time to get the nail file out and just even up everything before I disassembled the puzzle. Now that everything was looking good and right where I wanted it to be, it was time to disassemble the puzzle so that I could round off all of the pieces individually. I got a nail file out and I knocked off all of the sharp edges of each of the pieces that I'd modified, and then I rubbed them down with some Scotch-Brite just to smooth over the surface and make everything look nice. This also prepares the pieces for painting, but that's not as much of a priority as just getting the shape right. After I was happy with how all the pieces were looking, I reassembled the puzzle and checked it for movement. And everything was turning just fine, so I gave it a couple coats of black spray paint and I was really happy with how this puzzle was looking. I'm a huge fan of the shape. I think it looks fantastic. I think I've done a really good job getting the correct shape for this puzzle. It was a bit of a difficulty, but I think I got there in the end. And the important thing is that this shape is uniform, and I've checked and all of the pieces match just fine, so I'm really happy with that. After getting some stickers on it, which I had to cut myself, so I lost all of the light of the day unfortunately, so I couldn't get any of those nice beauty shots or any of that B-roll, but I still like the look of this puzzle and I think it's a fantastic addition to the Penrose Cube series. If you're unfamiliar with the original Penrose Cube, I'll leave a link in the description to both my video on making that puzzle and the original Inventor's channel, but anyways, I hope you guys like this video and I hope you guys like this puzzle. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all next time.